This is the installation of the boiler gasket and the heating element bottom plate on Olympia Cremina 67 Espresso Machine. This machine has been completely stripped down to the boiler frame. Even the wiring harness is loose and off. This is a full rebuild on this machine, and it's always nice to get everything broken down, everything clean, and then I like to start at the bottom and work up. And as the first thing is this boiler gasket. These pieces have all been scrupulously cleaned. First it was descaled with citric acid, and even when you do that, you open the boiler, you'll see dark deposits, sometimes black deposits, sometimes gummy deposits. You clean and scour until it's smooth and bright and shiny. The old gasket has been removed. Many times you have to use a putty knife or a skill knife blade to get the old bits of gasket off, so you have two nice smooth surfaces. The Cremina is so precisely made. You see this fine groove around here. I've picked this clean with a tool to make sure that there's nothing in that groove, there's no scale, there's no debris, and then there's a small lip as well. So this groove and lip is what makes the seal. A boiler gasket can look pretty ugly around the outside edge. As long as this seal has integrity, it won't leak. The orientation of the machine, I like to put it this way because it's a lot easier to work on. Sometimes actually you can hold it between your knees in this position, and actually that makes it a little easier if that's the way you're set up. In this situation, I'm already here. I have my 6 boiler bolts, the plate, my 5mm hex wrench. This I use as a little torque wrench. It's just a standard 6-way screwdriver. I've taken the wiring harness off and set it aside. The position
After making a wiring diagram.
After making the all-important wiring diagram, yes. Okay, the orientation here in this particular model, this is a 1990. The orientation is the socket for the thermal safety reset is by the ground pigtail, and that's always the way you know how to orient it. That pigtail stays in even when you remove most of the harness. Simplest way to do it is to generally align that gasket and start one of our bolts through the hole, and that will hold it more or less in place to get that first one started. We come up inside the frame, make sure the ground is out of the way and all the wires aren't in the way, and we move around until we find that first hole and get the bolt started. Okay, we maintain orientation, and if your gasket slips, you might need to get in with a blunt probe to find that next hole. You can generally feel it or hear it click into the socket. And since everything is so nice and clean at this point, it's actually a pleasure. The breakdown of the machine, yes, is dirty and it's messy and sometimes discouraging. You proceed carefully, take all the panels off, set them aside, make sure you don't scratch anything, and your worries are minimal at this point once you have just the bare frame of the machine. The owner of this machine intends to repaint this bottom frame when it's all rebuilt, and it'll be very nice when it's done, but functionally we're going to do this work first. Now here's the catcher, and the beauty of the Swiss is that they have machined a hole in the frame that allows you to tighten that last bolt. There are Creminas which have no hole. The very early ones, some of the European models, that if you have a machine here that's 110 that's been transferred, or it's been changed over from 220, I've seen one. That hole is not there, and you basically have to take the entire boiler off the frame and do this task with the boiler off. And it's kind of frustrating when you see that that hole's not there. On these bolts, if you have, I generally take all of my small parts when I'm disassembling a machine and collect them up in one place. You can tell these from the group, they're a bit longer. So that's generally not a problem. Now we just go ahead and we just snug this up all the way around. Now it's pretty much like putting on a car wheel, is that we want to get this plate to go down even all the way around, and so we snug them in a crossways pattern. This isn't my final tightening, so we'll just get them snugged down. The problems that you can have in the reassembly here, the biggest issue is to make sure this is free and it's not wedged between the boiler and the bottom plate. That has happened to me, and it's very frustrating because you have to start all over. Now I'll do my final tightening here in a fairly serious star pattern, and I use my cheater just to feel that happen. I go straight across and I take the next one, and this is pretty much intuition, but these bolts, they don't have to be really torqued down so tight. You don't want to turn that gasket into a paper thin membrane. Remember that the groove and the lip, you basically want to just press it down evenly. And the two surfaces will sandwich that gasket just really nicely in that one sealing surface. Now I'll go back and I'll start over again here, because they will loosen crossways, and just give it a check. You're going to check this again later after you do a heat test and a leak test, and they will loosen a little bit, but we come across, and now the Olympia Cremina boiler gasket is installed. The wiring harness needs to be installed, but as you can see, we have a little more work to do, and that will be one of our next tasks.